Now, making predictions is, of course, a mug's game, so let's give it a go. Joining us now are three of Sky's finest brains: political editor Faisal Islam, economics editor Ed Conway, and diplomatic editor Dominic Waghorn. Thank you very much for coming in on a Sunday morning. It's like a game show, exactly. Pretty much, yeah. I'm just going to try and pin you all down. No, I'm joking. I just thought that after such an extraordinary year, obviously now New Year's in 2019, it's a good time to kind of kick back and try and take stock, have a look back at 2018 and throw forward to what we think might happen in what I think is going to be one of the most unpredictable years of journalism that I can remember. So, I thought I'd start off by chatting about any standout moments for you guys from 2018. Dominic, on the sort of foreign affairs brief, is there anything that really sort of stood out to you?
Well, there's a whole sort of year of crazy to pick from, isn't there? And I'm tempted to go with Trump's meeting with Kim Jong-un in Singapore, because it was kind of everything you expect from Donald Trump and more. It was sort of, it was a triumph of spectacle over substance. It was a classic case of Trump sort of confecting a crisis with his little rocket man, fire and fury rhetoric that terrified us all for much of the year, and then kind of defusing that crisis, but actually emerging with nothing of real substance in what he ended up deciding with the little rocket man up there. But I think it doesn't beat what happened later in Helsinki when Trump met Putin, and we still don't know what they talked about, but afterwards he stood next to the Russian leader and astounded the world by saying that he'd prefer to take the Russian leader's word about whether Russia hacked America's elections over the word of his own spy agencies. And I think that goes to the heart of the kind of the riddle at the heart of the Trump presidency, which we still don't have an answer for, which is what has he got on him, and what does that mean for America's national interest? Yeah. And hopefully we'll get an answer to that this year.
Fingers crossed. If it's been an extraordinary year in global politics, it has been domestic politics as well, hasn't it, Faisal? What do you think was your kind of most standout moment?
There are definitely too many, but if I pick one, it will be a decisive moment, a moment of indecision, which was the decision to delay the vote. Which, because it contains everything in it, the build-up to that moment, historic moment, as we were repeatedly told for weeks and months leading up to it, your entire sort of cabinet summits about how to prepare for it, to then delay it is quite something, and it sort of got lost. There were so many things that happened last year that got slightly lost in the sort of general flow of extraordinary political events.
Which is why you've got to take a step back sometimes.
You do have to take a step back.
This isn't normal, is it? This is
none of this is normal, particularly when you then see the consequence of that is that the vote was delayed by more than a month at least, and now there are various MPs starting to predict that the vote won't happen on the 15th or 16th either, and yet at the very same time you have the political track of this whole Brexit thing, but you also have the reality track, and the reality track was at that moment a government department, Department of Transport, was drafting a contract for ferries in Ramsgate or for ferry service in Ramsgate, using the words, "This is a moment of extreme urgency." I mean, it's there in black and white in the contract award notice that was slipped out over Christmas. So you have, on the one hand, the government asserting, for legal purposes, we're in a moment of extreme urgency as regards Brexit, but on the other hand, delaying this vote by over a month and potentially for longer.
What about the economics of it all, Ed?
And it's funny because actually, in a way, it has been the politics, whether it's Trump or indeed Brexit, that have been driving the economic story for quite some time. We've been looking at the markets and seeing the reaction. But the interesting thing and the interesting kind of moment or period for me was the final month of the year. Normally, investors talk about a kind of Santa rally, don't they? Markets are going to go up as people start to, get ready for Christmas. In fact, it was the complete opposite. Markets in the US, to some extent over here, just completely plummeted. We had the worst December that we've seen since 1930. And why is that happening? It's because economics is starting to come back to bite the politics. You've got the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. That's causing this kind of knock-on chain of consequences around the world, in the US, but elsewhere as well. Argentina, Turkey, we saw crises there over the course of this year. That's big stuff. Interest rates are starting to be a big story now. People are worried about China as well.
So what's your predictions, then, for what's going to happen next year?
Well, I'm one of them, and it kind of comes along from that. And I should say, we're all mugs if we make predictions.
Yeah, of course.
And have us back in a year's time to prove how wrong we were. To laugh at us. I suspect, probably, it's been a long time since we've had a recession in a G7 country. I think we might well get another one over the course of the next year. We might well hear about it in the next 3 months even. Germany looks like it may well be kind of close to that. And I think it might well be more than one G7 country, so the top 7 countries in the world.
So a nice optimistic prediction.
Well, I mean, you know, you asked for one. I've got others, but that's
sunshine.
the pessimistic one, I'm afraid.
Dominic, what's your prediction?
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't got much more to cheer people up with, and I think at this time of year people do sort of, you know, observers get together and indulge in navel gazing and say we don't really know how it's going to work out, but let's hope it's a good year. I think probably geopolitically, we're not hoping for the best of years. We're hoping for the least bad of years, given what we're facing in America, not least. And I think, you know, you're looking at a president who is temperamentally unsuitable to be in the job, and it's been a rollercoaster ride so far. But he has had stabilisers on him in the form of these former generals, Mattis, Kelly, McMaster. He's now surrounded by not so much yes men, but people who do his bidding. They're intelligent people, Pompeo, Bolton and others, but they don't dissent. And what's really important to say is every presidency so far, if you think about Obama and the financial meltdown, George W. Bush and 9/11, his father with the invasion of Kuwait, every president does face a major crisis, a massive global crisis that they have to deal with. And we've not had one with Trump so far.
Be interesting to see how he reacts.
Well, we've been lucky so far, but when it does, as it surely will at some point, how is he going to cope without those kind of restraints on him?
Well, it feels like the Prime Minister's in the crisis right now. What's your political prediction for 2019?
OK, so I could sort of equivocate and say, well, it could go this way or it could the other way. But if you call something here,
call it.
I would say unlike last year, which was a bit of an oddity in terms of what we've seen over the past 4 years, I think at some point this year we will be going back to some sort of national poll of some description.
Wow,
the ballot boxes will be reused. And the reason I say that is you just have this fundamental impasse, don't you, which is that I believe that there is a majority in Parliament that just does not want to see a no-deal Brexit. But it's no doubt that it's the default option. So somehow can that majority in Parliament express that will, particularly in the case when, as we saw in the internal Conservative Party membership polling, where you have Conservative members, 70% of whom want a no deal or would accept a no deal, think it's generally a good idea.
Which you don't think Parliament would accept? And, yeah.
I don't. Well, I haven't thought it, actually, frankly, Sophie. I haven't thought it since after the general election. The numbers are fairly obvious, really. Now, whether they have a parliamentary method to stop it is another question.
Whether they end up with it by mistake.
Yes. So I'm not ruling out no deal, but I'm saying that the will is there, from what I calculate in Parliament, to stop the train track heading towards no deal.
We're out of time.
Yeah.
That was fascinating. I want to call you back to find out if it's true. Thank you very much.